Hello everybody, and welcome back to the LJL officially unofficial stream. I am your host, and filling in a little role today, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi. I go by Master on the internet. I am joined by the illustrious, the incredible, the impeccable Sam Hapgood, otherwise known as Initialize. As always, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Sam, Initialize Hapgood. I'm bereft of my other half of the casting duo, but fortunately, some serious talent will be stepping in today. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, the colour casting host, Smash Swan. It's a pleasure to have him casting alongside me. I'm actually quite looking forward to having you cast some games. It'll be interesting to see how we do with this one. We'll pull out all our analytical might together to replace the hole that Nightmare will be leaving in the stream today.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need both of our powers together here, because...
we'll be fine. We know what we're talking about, he says.
Caster or Cynic Caster. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. If mistakes are made, I'm definitely going to call it out. I know that's for a fact.
Yeah. The question is whether we're actually calling out mistakes or things we think are mistakes. That's the problem. So the thing is, afterwards, we're going to get these VOD reviews where Nightmare is going to sit us both down, look at us and go, you're wrong. You're really, really wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, at least we're confident in how wrong we'll be.
So, exactly, yeah. Confidence is key.
So we're only going to be covering 2 games today. It's going to be the Sengoku Gaming versus DetonatioN FocusMe as our first game of the day. So begin on a high note. Begin on a very high note for us.
It will be.
And then following that game, we will have the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming facing off against V3 Esports. What a games, really, to actually be covering. The Hawks obviously trying to figure out what's been wrong with them. You've got Sengoku, who's on a slight downstream as well. And then you've got DFM, the kings of the LJL, kind of defending and trying to see if they can do a Cloud9 and have an undefeated streak. And you got V3 Esports, who really need that win to actually kind of bring themselves up to the table, although they'll be sitting in last place at the end of week 5.
Oh, hugely. It's a complete surprise to me entirely that's where V3 have ended up.
Yeah.
We had a lot of hope for these guys coming into the split. We were talking about it on the podcast last night.
That'll be up in a few hours, actually.
There we go. Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, V3 came in, as the second place team from last summer, who looked pretty good in that finals. We'd had Pat from the top lane. We thought, wow, yeah, they've lost Yutori, and that's really sad, but they picked up Boogie, who's a really fantastic jungler, and there's a lot of room for them to be carrying through that top side. And yeah, maybe they'll drop down the standings, but they should still be pretty viable as a team.
Yeah, 100%.
That hasn't really proved to be the case over the last couple of weeks. Ace, in particular, in the mid lane has been a bit of a non-presence.
Yes.
Very low GPM, very low DPM for a mid lane. I think he might be the lowest GPM mid laner in the whole league at the minute. We've all, and Paz has been quiet. And that wasn't what we expected from coming in. And while Boogie's been brilliant, it's been difficult, I guess, for V3 to pick up wins when Boogie isn't running over that early game with a lot of agency. So I'm hoping for a recovery for them, if only for the sake of my predictions at the beginning of this split. But yes, if they do pick it up, the race gets even tighter, because at the minute, only DFM are anywhere near securing a good playoff berth, never mind one entirely.
True. With that first game in mind, it is Sengoku versus DFM. Now,
should be a huge one.
We've always said Sengoku are one of the few teams in a coin flip scenario. If they can get that coin flip, they have a chance. They are one of the few teams in the LJL where we've all, even from week 1, we were like, well, with how they're playing, there's a chance.
They've also been that one team to make us sort of suck our teeth and go, not sure about how you won that game. They've done it, I think it was last week, where they did go 2-0. Some way, somehow, against all the odds, they pulled out the wins. And, those wins are on the table, and a win is a win. So we'll not take that away from them. But those wins weren't pretty.
No.
But within those wins, we saw a lot of consistency out of Pyrion, which was kind of what we were asking for. Yeah. And Yutori Miyashi put out some insane numbers last week, particularly on his Aphelios game and that 57-minute monstrosity where Nymera kind of lost it. He had a moment towards the end of that game.
That's one way to put it.
But Yutori actually did like 1.2k damage a minute in that game or something like that. It was pretty insane.
Ended it going 8-0-1, phenomenal week. Both Perion and Yutori Muashi, as we covered in the podcast, went undefeated. They did not die in last week. So
perfect KDA for weeks 2. So exactly. So if they can keep that consistency up, And potentially, if Yutomiyashi and oh gosh, his lane partner escaped me. It's Enti, of course. Yeah, can sort of get a good matchup in the bot side, and Piri and Blank get roaming, we could see them try and run over that bot lane. Potentially might be an option for them. You know, they have seen some strength in Yutomiyashi, and if Apperman is going to be split pushing anyway, because that's what he does, then leave him alone, let him do his thing, and maybe just try and run over one of those lanes. And considering Saros loves those control mages, can be a little bit hard to gank sometimes. I could see pressure being put towards that bot side being maybe a viable strategy for Sengoku game.
Well, that's going to be an interesting one. I think it's about time that we go over into the pick and ban phase.
So, man, absolutely.
As we always do over here in the LJL Officially Unofficial, it's a blast from the past, and I will quickly count us in for this first game, where I actually still hang around, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So in 3, 2, 1, let's go into it.
Yeah, and it's good to have you here with me, Master. It's a little sad to be missing Nightmare. But instead, we will be going into pick and bans. And of course, Sengoku Gaming on the blue side this time around. And it's Apperman in the top side. It's Blank in the jungle. Pirian in the mid lane. Yutomiyashi and Enti are the remaining members for that team.
Yeah, and we've got DFM over on red side. The gods, the kings of the LJL. We've got Evie in the top lane. We've got Steel in the jungle, Cirrus in the mid lane, Yutapong as their bot carry, and we've got Gang as support.
Yeah, and that's a pretty mean lineup for DFM. We'll have to see how Sengoku Gaming do come up with this. I'm looking forward to seeing Yutomiyashi versus Yutapon, two of our better AD carries, if not the best two in the league. There are, of course, a number of threats to that claim, but they look pretty good. But as the bans have come through, Set, Olaf, and Jarvan taken away by Sengoku Gaming, and it's LeBlanc and Yuumi from the side of DFM not wanting to give those up as first pick priorities.
It's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they ban a GP here. We know Apperman loves to play GP. Ornn is still open. So there's a fair few options here for the side of SG to lock in. And
well, there's the Ornn first pick. What a surprise.
I think it was either ban the Ornn or let it go through for DFM. And
well, it's gone through, and that's a good start for Sengoku Gaming, right? That's one of those picks that has been really hard to deal.
Yes, absolutely. And Apperman, this is definitely a kind of champion where you put him on it, you leave him to it, and when he needs to play in the teams, he's more than happy to, but you can also just leave him, and he offers utility with the items and everything else, so...
But that does mean that Aphelios is left to be picked up by Yutapon. Was considering a misfortune, but Yutomiyashi has shown he can play both the misfortune and the Aphelios really well, so that makes a lot of sense. Still thinking about a Lee Sin here, but perhaps more towards the Sejuani would make a little bit more sense. But he's got to be a little bit careful because Blank does play both. The Sejuani does play the Trundle. So either way, there'll be a decent matchup. All of these picks kind of being wandered around. And I think they are going to go with the Lee Sin in the end, which is a really aggressive early pick.
That is kind of surprising, especially against an Ornn. Not the greatest way to kill an Ornn, because even at those early levels, he is incredibly tanky. But, I mean, this is Steel. If he's going to find a will, he'll find a way.
And it does offer those really aggressive early gank paths. Blank thinking instead about the Elise, which is kind of another one of those level 3, very powerful junglers, which indeed is locked in, and that means the Cocoon is available. AP versus AD, Elise versus Lee Sin. It's a jungle matchup as old as time. And Ezreal locked in for Yutomiyashi, another one of these old school gods on Ezreal. Good to have him on that. Seros's Heimerdinger was left open.
And they know
I would be... Yeah, unsurprised if we do pick it. They could do it.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't pick it now, they've kind of got this awkward spot where they know in phase 2 they'll probably ban it out.
Thinking instead about the Ziggs, it's not flexible, though, is the problem. And, of course, we have talked about, or Nymera particularly talked about how Ziggs can absolutely be counterpicked. So could leave Seros up to a bit of danger, but it is also Seros playing this. And that means that any counterpick is... gonna have to struggle a little bit against this guy who's so damn good at the champion.
Well, I mean, they've locked it in and they're going for that ban, so now they have to ban those control mages. Obviously, they already banned LeBlanc and the Syndra coming in. That makes sense. They're going to just aggressively target those mid laners.
Those scatter the weak combos onto Ziggs can interrupt those satchel charges and make him feel a little bit sad about his health bar, so I can see that being a really sensible one. see what the response is from Sengoku Gaming. I wonder what they're going to be banning towards. Probably towards the top side, I guess. Evi's Vladimir has been an absolute nightmare over the last couple of weeks, so couldn't understand wanting to take that away from him.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I imagine they're just going to keep banning out the top laners that they really don't want Ornn to have to face against. It makes sense.
Gangplank might make a lot of sense to me as well, because they're just two champions which get to scale for in a kind of relatively free lane into the Ornn.
Yes.
And that's kind of one of those potential answers for that champion, is just saying, well, I'm not going to kill you, but I will scale as hard, if not harder than you, and that's always a bit of a risk. Narband, it's because, of course, Ornn can deflex to the mid lane. So just throwing out that option just in case, I guess that's what they're thinking, at least, unless there is some monstrous AD Gnar that we've been, mid lane Gnar that we've just like completely blanked on over the last few weeks. But
I just don't like that ban at all. I think that's just a ban where you go, well, if you assume they're just playing pretty face up, it's just like, well, he's going top, and you've just let yourself to get counterpicked for mid lane anyway. So what are you doing with that? Unless you're planning on taking Ziggs top, which don't
would
think
be
you
a bit surprised. Would be a surprise. Yeah, thinking about a Mordekaiser here. I don't think we've seen Ebi play that as yet, actually. So that would be a new champion for him, and it is locked in. So Mordekaiser realistically top for Ebi. Is that kind of strong AP juggernaut, can just pull junglers out of the middle of nowhere and bite, hit them to death. You can pull weak, squishy members into that realm and get free stats. It's great around objectives because people like Elise can't smite anymore because they're in the wrong plane of existence. It's all good stuff.
That Braum ban at the end that Sengoku did was actually, the more I look at it, the more I love it. It was arguably the smartest ban out of all of these bans so far, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so good into Ezreal and Ornn, that ability to just put the door up and block all of those sort of line skill shots, really powerful. It's Morgana locked in to go alongside the Ezreal with Black Shield and bindings galore.
I don't hate it. I think in a lot of times DFM are looking for more...
Whoa! Nocturne mid. Sorry to interrupt. That was super unexpected.
Okay. This is the second Nocturne mid we've actually seen over here in the LJL. We saw it very early on. I think it was V3 versus Axis in Game 2 of Week 1.
It was the fastest game of this split when that Nocturne mid was run. And I called about pressure towards a bot lane. Morgana, Ezreal, at least Nocturne with a teleport from Ornn coming down is huge pressure onto that bot lane. And the Karma locked in to go alongside the Aphelios. I'm not sure about that because that's two very squishy members that could absolutely get blown up by this dive. They're going to have to manage their waves very carefully.
Yeah, they also... DFM don't have a designated tank, and this is a team from Sengoku who want to dive. You need peel. I don't hate the Karma, but then the rest of the comp doesn't really favor that. The Mordekaiser is now getting some spam question marks in game from me because I'm looking at that thinking you really need someone that can disengage or engage depending on where it is. And arguably, you gave it to them in their first pick of Ornn, who is great at doing both depending on what they're doing. This Lee Sin is also looking a little bit suspect, and now I would have preferred that Trundle that he was hovering earlier.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, Lee Sin does have the kick, of course, so he can disengage with that potentially. And there is a bit of room for something like a Mordekaiser to at least sit and be a bit of a meat shield in his bruisery way on the front line. But I completely agree. There is no true tank, and that's going to be a bit of a risk. Just to throw this at you, is this the first time we've seen DFM truly lose draft?
I believe so. Their last week looked incredibly strong. Arguably, they were having the second best pick and ban phase outside of our best pick and ban phase team, which is Axis. That's how they've been able to pick up their wins. They're drafting flawlessly. Well done to management for doing that as well to Axis. Right. But like, I think DFM, this might be their worst draft. Honestly, that first pick, letting Ornn go through, two then letting Aphelios come in, it's slightly questionable. And then the way that they decided to draft just didn't really fit the cohesion. And then also losing the Braum. Losing the Braum was very big as well, I think. Because that could have been their dedicated tank, both initiation and disengage as well.
Yeah, and that is a big one. And of course, I'm very curious to see how the Nocturne goes. It's one of those things where Nocturne has to be very careful, I'm going to guess. Because if Ziggs gets a free lane and can shove in, you know how quickly that champion can take towers. And Nocturne is going to want to sort of throw that Duskbringer out, clear out the wave, and then just sort of go skedaddling somewhere for paranoia to another lane, right? He wants to be able to roam. Yes. And it is always a little bit of a risk leaving a Ziggs alone with a tower. So could be a bit risky. On the other side, though, assuming that Elise and Nocturne can team up, there is a lot of room for Utapon and Guying to be really put in the dumpster. And, I was calling it earlier as a potential win condition. It's just like, well, if we can get DFM's bot lane behind, then maybe the rest of the map will follow suit. And it's like, I can't see Pyrian and Elise trying to gank the top side particularly well, because they'll want to do that when Nocturne's got 6.
Exactly.
And Mordekaiser at 6 will turn any, multiple person V1 into a 1v1 with a death realm. So it's always a massive risk.
Standard Sengoku line of leave Appermen. He will rarely lose game or lane rather. And then even if he does, you can safely let him farm. And oh god, that's a lot of poke coming onto Pyrian.
Yeah, exactly, because it was always going to be this risk. Of course, eventually, Nocturne will have that spell shield, but actually, lane's going very well for DFM early on. That level 1 poke from Calibrum, and of course, the Q from Karma is a lot of work. Soul Flare does a lot of damage. You can mantra it. You can make people feel really sad about their lives. Pushing in as hard as they can, as early as they can, are DFM with, especially that Ziggs actually in the mid lane. Until Nocturne gets that spell shield, all those bouncing bombs are going to hit like trucks. No way to avoid those, but unless there's good sidesteps coming out.
Yeah, and Nocturne, his runes for press the attack really does show that that Pyrian is looking to really
level 2 back. Oh my days.
Oh god, and the Twitter poll over in Japan, they believe DFM are winning this. There is not a huge chance, not the smallest chance we've actually seen from a Twitter poll for a team to beat DFM, but I don't granted though, that was done before Champ Select. So maybe it might be slightly different now. And
Steel has gone for an invade here and is actually going to run into Blank, who did a leashless start on that broadside. He's going to run into Steel, but that's a good cocoon to turn things around. And NT's here. He's got locked down. I think it might be first blood. Steel, what have you done? Is he going to get it? No, that's a good mantra to get out, and that repel's not going to catch him. Steel does get away. I thought he'd done it, but that's a lot of summoners been both Karma and Lee Sin burning flashes just for the NT's flash heal. What an aggressive invade that went very wrong, very fast from DFM.
Well, Gang did put a very late ward over into red side, which has run out by now, but it was something that, so they had knowledge of where Blank was starting, and he didn't rush over to it. So they had vision awareness, so it makes sense. But the problem is, going for an Elise, even as Elise Sin, at level 3, when you've got level mirroring levels, it becomes incredibly hard to actually get on top of it. And then when you've got when bot has priority to come up, it's so hard to actually know you're going to get that kill.
Another one of those mantra Qs land, and Utorimashi is going to be forced out of this lane. We said we wanted to see maybe Sengoku Gaming look towards this bot side. Currently, that bot side is at a deficit of 10 CS, depending on how much of this wave Utorimashi is even able to pick up, and that's genuinely not a lot. He takes a Gravitum Q, or a Gravitum Auto, rather. That Q is still available. Could be pretty dangerous, has to back away. At least has the teleport, so won't be missing out on too much. But that's not the first back you were looking for as an Ezra.
No, it's not. And now we're over here in the top lane. We're seeing Appermen zoning Ebby out. Just CS advantage over 10 lead. And this was a Mordekaiser that was picked into the Ornn.
All right, well, we're going to have to interrupt you, because what also could be going wrong is Blank is here and has all his summoners and a lot of things, just walking up, not even bothering throwing the Q, just making things as dangerous. Flash for that cocoon. I think that's going to be first blood. Gang goes down, and Utapon as well. I called it. It happens. The bot lane of DFM overstep. They're dead, and that is suddenly 2 kills on the board for Sengoku Gaming. First blood, and of course, that pressure that we were after on that bot side, as Ebby goes really low in this top side, and all Steel is doing is going for a bit of an invade on the blue side jungle for Blank.
Which is just the pressure advantage that they have, that SG have over DFM right now, is just huge. They're controlling the map completely. There's a huge CS lead, and the CS advantage that should be happening mid lane, Syros isn't ahead.
Ebby, ooh. That shield there, that indestructible, keeps him safe, and Steel is going to keep wandering. You're absolutely right. I was worried for Ebby's life there, because I thought this is a very tanky Ornn with a lot of damage from the Brittle procs early, but Steel is here. Maybe to put Appermen in trouble for this. The flash is early, but it means that Steel can just throw that Q out early, and Ebby flashes forward. He's going to try and turn it around. No, Ebby gets the kill, and that's going to put him in a significantly better spot in this lane.
Yeah, I mean, he was very far up. His only vision was in that tri-bush, meaning that, well, Steel was able to just walk up through the river and just get it. But then they are trading over objectives here. And obviously, Upperman can just TP back over to the top lane, not lose basically any gold or any real experience, and SG actually just capitalize on that small mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's huge. And like this, Elise, like we've heard a lot of people have some concerns about Elise. We've seen Elise's win rate in LJL kind of be a little bit antithetical to her actual pick rate. But the reason you do want to pick this is or people do want to pick this is she just does have that incredible early power with the cocoon, with the repel. You can just dive people and turn up and make things feel really sad. That's a decent minefield and not as much poke as I was expecting. So never mind that. And Elise gets to walk away. And, you know, at 2-0, got that first first Cloud Drake, by the way. I'm not quite sure what the next Drake will be. We'll see when we pan over the Drake pit next. We've seen the 2 early kills and first blood go over. She's in a fantastic spot to continue to run over this lane. And now this Nocturne has hit level 6.
Yeah.
That the paranoia is available. Like, I've got to imagine the bot lane is going to be getting attacked one more time. At least they didn't burn summoners, knew they were kind of dead to rights. So there's at least that going for DFM. And they have got that 10 CS lead still. But there is still room for Blank and Pyrion to just turn up and repeat the process from earlier.
Yeah, and the problem is, because of how Nocturne works, he can literally appear almost anywhere at any time. Whenever they want to do this, he will just be there, either if it's topside just to dive this Mordekaiser for the finishing food blows for Apperman, or if it's just this bot side which keep pushing in so aggressively.
Yeah, and of course, because it is a Morgana and not someone with the kind of tanky stats of something like a Nautilus, rather, like... Any Qs that do hit from that card will just hit that bit much more. She does have the Black Shield, I guess, which will mitigate some of that poke damage, but can still sting a little bit as you are quite squishy down at like 2 levels, actually, potentially, or at least a level onto Utapon and Gang. Utapon actually did get level 6, though, so I guess that's where the experience advantage did go in this lane, but the pressure on these plates does continue. Second plate already down at 8 minutes.
And we're just trying to look around.
Oh, wait. A little bit of a satchel charge onto Pyrion. Knocks him back. Might have to flash. Will Pyrion is here, but Blank is here to try and turn it around. The fear is huge. So is that massive Q from Elise. It is going to be turned around, and Saros can't, or rather Blank can't follow up on the Saros. It's a 1-for-1 on that mid lane, but that's significantly more than that Nocturne had any right to be thinking of.
Yeah, they almost got the double kill there, and it looked fun. Oh, God.
Well, Call of the Forge God is here. Sengoku Gaming's Apperman looking to continue a trade onto Ebby. Death Realm still available. I'm not sure Ebby wants it. Just the ult burn. Indestructible popped. But what it does do is keep Mordekaiser from wandering down into this river to see that Blank has started up the Rift Herald. 3-0-0 on this, at least one early game from this jungler.
Blank is having the game of his life so far for this split. Apperman securing, making sure that they have control over the topside river. That's all they care about right now. Bot lane is comfortably just doing their thing, not dying, as important as that is. And with this Scuttle now, well, not Scuttle, with Krabby now getting killed, where do we think that's going to get put? Where do we think the push is going to be? Is it the top side or the mid lane or even the spot lane?
You know, I'm not actually sure. I've been trying to work that out. I mean, I could see it done into something like maybe the Ziggs if you wanted to try and get rid of a tower, but he's got so much wave clear, it'd be quite tricky. Yeah. I wonder whether it's just going to be a bit more opportunistic. I wonder whether they try and do it up with one of the dives that the Nocturne or the Elise people together. Actually, it's Ebby and Apperman are going to get it once again. Blank's here, but the Death Realm's been active, so I think Apperman just goes down. Yeah, he does. But that means Elise is here to potentially turn it around. But the stats are there from that Death Realm. And that means that's a good repel to avoid the obliterate. And another kill for 4-0. What a game from this jungler. SKT Blank activated.
Now, Blank just needs to be able to transition that into assistance for their team. That is the important part. Getting a lead is very important, but
yeah.
Ooh,
look, but that Rift Herald is summoned. But I told you about the opportunism. Just uses it at the top side. Saros picks up first tower. That satchel is disgusting.
That literally almost got like a full plate just done off of a satchel, which is absurd, the amount of damage. And the pressure that does, and then that's DFM first tower. They get that extra tower gold. That's keeping them well in this game, and the gold is very, very close still so far in this game, even with 4 kills over on Blank.
Yeah, that's 4-3 in kills. It's 400 gold lead to DFM, but first Drake over to Sengoku Gaming. DFM do get the first rotation up to this bot side, though. They did get the first tower, and that bot lane is looking pretty strong. Look at that CS lead there. That's pretty huge. Even if Saros is kind of mirroring it again in that mid lane, the Ziggs over the Nocturne definitely getting the CS advantage. I'm not surprised to see that. We've still yet to see a paranoia out of this Nocturne, though, and I need to see that happen. I'm not sure this Nocturne pick will have been well worth it, but Ebby potentially in trouble here. Cocoon lands, is now in trouble. Huge damage from this Elise, who's got all the damage, just chases forwards with that repel, but there's a decent ability. What a flash binding! Not quite landing, and Ebby steps it.
Oh, I think if that binding hit, that was it. That's all she wrote. It would be over. But Apperman
Good
here.
ward from Apperman does spot out Steel in behind. Is it
behind?
Searing charge. Just here, that's forces the flash from Apperman just with the ward behind. He's like, yeah, I can still kick you back, you know, buddy. And forces a lot of summoners out of Apperman. That means that Blank, once again, gets free time over towards this dragon. The second one is started. I believe that was an Ocean Drake. So it's turret pressure for dragon control currently being the trade here.
Yeah, and we see this a lot over in a lot of games in general. Trading the dragon for turrets or even potentially Rift Herald, it's not that unseen of a thing. As long as you are getting some form of other advantage on the map, it's not normally so bad. Normally it is favored in the side of the team getting the turrets, but Ooh,
Mega Inferno Bomb just to try and clear out the wave. Might well be just enough. You know, it's done with this. There is a fair amount to be done on that wave. It's now just goes down. Blank's going to repel out. They're trying to get as much damage as they can, but it does delay the push. It means that DFM once again kept that tempo advantage just because they've got that earlier reset, can choose where their bot lane goes across the map. Saros with a pretty timely Mega Inferno Bomb. We've seen that from this guy before, right? Where you can just trim waves from across the map, and that's just so obnoxious.
It is. And it just slows down the assault on turrets. Obviously, this is a spot where you really wanted Yutori Muashi to really get that bot lane turret gold to then switch, go top lane, get that top turret, which still has 2 plates on it, and then kind of play around the map and get mirror advantage. And the advantage or the trade that you did with DFM is kind of negated in the long run with those dragons that you did pick up. But with dragons, we're on an infernal map. Which is...
Yeah, that is huge. Like, so this is the kind of trade that like a lot of people have been talking about. So Froskerin is someone who's mentioned this a few times over on the early cast, where it's basically saying like, actually, teams are often willing to give up the first couple of Drakes just to stack whatever the Rift Drake, I suppose is the way we'll term it. Yeah. It turns up at the end, so you can get like the most stacking advantage you can out of that. So if DFM could pick up like 4 Infernal Drakes, that would be insane value. So I can see where that kind of priority comes from.
But then
on the other side of it,
do have that advantage though.
Yeah, exactly. So if they pick up just 2 more Drakes, they've got Infernal Soul, and that would be pretty terrifying as well.
It really does help this Elise not fall off as fast as well. She will still be relevant for far longer in this game than people would be expecting. But we are seeing a group at top.
Yeah, Sengoku Gaming are here. Pyrian is here, is in behind, and Gang and Utapon kind of wondering what's going on, but the pings are coming down. Steel is coming up. It would be a 3v3. Steel on vision though. Blank and NT rather desperate to make sure they're not spotted, and that's pretty good vision control for the red side jungle for Sengoku Gaming actually.
Yeah, that was very well played around. They were completely blind even in their own jungle because Sengoku had made sure they had full vision control, so DFM were going kind of blind and playing very scared. Correctly so, assuming probably more members, as Apperman was also missing as well. It could have been a 4-man collapse top. That is not a spot that you want to be in when you are a squishy Aphelios still at the moment.
Yeah, while that Elise is so very strong right now, we've still not seen an ultimate out of Pyrian. He's nearly at level 11. He's nearly at rank 2 of the Paranoia, and yet to use a rank 1. Like, that's pretty big deal, actually. I kind of need to be seeing a little bit more out of him, and the gold lead now is stretching a little bit in DFM's favor as these lanes are kind of just slowly winning more and more CS.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out why it hasn't been used as aggressively. We saw bot lane from DFM was very aggressively pushing pretty much all the time. Even after conceding 2 kills over to the side of Sengoku, they just kept pushing regardless. And Pyrian might have been able to find a spot there where he could have potentially ulted and maybe assisted with even maybe just resetting the wave for them. Just that scare paranoia that we see in solo queues so often.
True. Big time. And the thing is, actually, Ziggs and Aphelios, it's actually quite a lot of wave clear compared to what it's basically a Dustbringer and the occasional true shot barrage from an Ezreal. Like, there's not that much easy wave clear. I guess, like, Ornn and at least bring a little bit with, like, the Volatile Spiderling and the Bellows Breath and stuff. Like, there is room for a little bit, but just what is that versus Karma Q's, Aphelios with the right items? What is that versus a Ziggs? You know, that's just so much more out. I have wondered whether that's giving them a little bit of lane priority. I'm not sure what you're thinking about that.
No, I would definitely agree. It does give DFM just a lot of respect for the sake of just giving them respect. But thank God this bot turret.
Finally goes down. It's now 2-1 turrets for DFM. They finally managed to get back to this turret, which Ziggs hit in Mega Inferno Bomb the wave on before. Does even up the goal a little bit. Puts it actually not just even to dead even, no less. So that's good work there from Sengoku Gaming.
Pyrion is also pushing this top lane as well. So keeping it pressure. Is what they need to do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that actually gives them the gold lead now. Only about 500, but it does put them up, and that's kind of important right now because their game is their team comp. I want to say is pretty mid game spiking. They want to be using that Elise and Nocturne while they've kind of got the dive potential. And Sengoku Gaming here to start up the Infernal. Right, this would be their third. This would put them at its sole point. That would be huge. At the minute, it's just being traded for Herald. I'm not sure about this trade, DFM.
I get trading the first Herald, but then you didn't take the first Herald, so I mean I don't even think it's really worth it because let's be real, turret plates are gone. You're not getting the extra gold from it, so now you're just kind of getting some damage on mid's turret. I don't think that's worth it when you're literally conceding the fact of just potentially if you give them an accidental Drake or even if Blank just steals it, that's it.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Is a release.
So I wonder whether this is a calculated risk, and I'll tell you why. It's because we've seen that Ziggs combo with the Herald, and that does put the priority in Herald sky high, because of course we have seen a couple of games where you drop the Herald in one lane, Herald charge, you throw a satchel down, that tower goes immediately, and you can get a second charge, and that Paranoia's actually come out and forces the flash out of Utapon. First one used, burns a summoner out of Utapon, but it is not going to get a kill. It is the Ignite out of Pyrion, but probably not the most value out of that spell, out of that summoner. Oh, come on, I can do this. Ability, there we go. But at least flash burn.
It did look like Utapon flash just before the fear came through fully from Pyrion there. So that was going to be the flash there, or potentially going to have to use the cleanse flash as well. So he was fortunate to not have to use both of his two summoners there, I would say.
Yeah, potentially. And that is a big deal, right? I mean, the fear does take a little while to tether, so breaking it with the flash was definitely the best call. But that was getting really scary.
But as you said, Pyrion is now level 12. When you get that level 11, you get that level 2 ultimate, and your ult cooldown is so quick, relatively speaking. It's already halfway done. It basically means it'll be ready in another minute, and he can keep doing this. And this is why I'm expecting more from Pyrion. I think this is what we are both expecting more from Pyrion to do.
I mean, exactly. There's still room for him to be doing stuff, right? Like the fact you are a solo and Nocturne means that you're not as behind as you could be if you were in the jungle and hadn't pulled anything off. You do get a little bit more leeway there, I guess, just because you are getting more levels and more items. So you do put out meaningful damage. You know, you're level 12. That's tied with not quite the highest in the game. You're just the one level behind Seros, but you know, you're up there in levels, which is good. So you're not out of it yet. But on the other hand, if you do dive wrong and Seros throws a Mega Inferno bomb down on you, you could be feeling a little bit miserable.
Yes, but now Utapon hasn't got that flash, so with the Paranoia, you can just aggressively target Utapon and just be like, ooh.
Game pause, but we have no one to bring in this time.
What? That's what I do. That's my
I know,
thing.
so you get to just stay here and talk to me for a while, so I need your thoughts on where you think this game states at. It's a lot closer than I think either of us were necessarily expecting, until, of course, the draft has been a bit weird, and we feel kind of a pretty smart one from Sengoku Gaming, and the game has proved to be pretty close as well, I think.
We've not seen a full team fight yet, and
No.
I still believe that DFM, while they have wave clear, and they can definitely win a 3-1-3 or a 4-1 split kind of composition, Sengoku already have dragon advantage, and they're knocking on the door for that emblem, or what is it called? Not an emblem, soul. Dragon soul. They're knocking on the door for the dragon soul, and now they're also trying to be like, well, we also have the better team fight, so now it's very disadvantage for DFM. They do have Ziggs with the satchel charges, with the Mega Infernal Bomb, but I'm not confident how going forward it is for DFM. Now they are great at playing around the map, and potentially they might try and apply map pressure, but even then it seems like Sengoku have been able to kind of take the vision advantage away.
Yeah, and like at least for a team fight, like while I don't necessarily think Nocturne is the best team fighter, I mean he does have a lot of dive, can get onto carries fairly well.
Yep.
So there's that going for him. But the fact that there is an Ornn available just means it's just so much.
Yes.
The burden of engage is so much easier. And actually, we're back into game, so keep talking about when we do that. Morgana, of course, but with the bindings can like is bit of CC. Cocoon is pretty good CC. Like Nocturne can just dive and start a fight. Whereas like who really starts a fight for DFM? Like you're looking at an
Steel,
opportunistic, yeah, or a Gravitamal.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of it, or maybe like an opportunity death grasp from a Mordekaiser, but that's a bit awkward to rely on.
Very awkward.
Yeah. So yeah, like you kind of you're relying on steel mainly, and maybe the right gun out from Utapon. That's kind of it. So.
And we've seen.
I kind of agree with you. Could worry for the team fights, yeah.
We've seen this before from DFM. This was the second time I think we've really seen them draft a comp where they've got no team fight, as Rifty Boy, Krabby as I like to call them, is in this mid lane.
Yeah, going to get the charge off, and I think it's just going to go straight. No, it's not going to go straight down, but that satchel charge means it does go down very swiftly. Won't get the second charge, but mid lane turret claimed with very little fanfare. That is the power of the Ziggs. Herald didn't get the second charge off, though, so perhaps not the same value that they would have been hoping for. But on the other hand, mid turret is claimed, and with a Ziggs there in the mid lane to just continually wave clear, there's very little chance for that mid lane turret of DFM to be going down anytime soon.
Yes, and now everybody knows in 1 minute we're getting a fight. That's why we didn't see any team fight happen around that Rift Herald coming out, because well, when you've got the Dragon Soul to fight for, you need everything up, and Utapon is still not gonna have his flash for this fight, which is gonna be ringing alarm bells. This is the same flash that was lost during Pyrion doing that ultimate earlier, and getting him to force the flash. Now, what does that mean in the grand scale of things? Well, it means, well, SG just have complete advantage. Utapon can just die very, very quickly to Pyrion, and what does that say for this team fight potential?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, if Elise comes joining in, if that True Shot Barrage comes over on top, like, you could just see that AD carry deleted very quickly. So I kind of agree. And, you know, this Infernal Drake is a massive fight. So for Aphelios not to have his flash, it could be seriously scary. So I've got to imagine DFM are going to want to stall at least 20 seconds just to try and get Utapon's flash somewhere relevantly up. But we'll find out that I'm not sure Sengoku Gaming are going to give them that chance. And DFM are actually looking potentially for an engage here. The Q does miss that Sonic Wave, not in time. But this is a call of the forward god. This is Nocturne coming through to follow up that round. Has got the black shield on top of him. So much damage, but no one actually dies. Blank has to go up in the air. That's a huge mega fireball. This is a huge turnaround now. It's going all wrong. The Golden Spider gets picked up by Gang, and it's a 2 for none so far for DFM. What a clutch turnaround. Yutori Miyashi in the death realm and picked up by Utapon as he comes out. It's 3 for 0. And never mind Infernal Dragon. They're going straight to Baron. They want to break this game open to DFM.
Wow, that I don't think that could have gone any worse for Sengoku. They didn't get a kill. The initiation, all of everything thrown on Utapon. Didn't even have to use cleanse. That's how far ahead they just weren't able to get on him, even with the Nocturnal. And now they're trying to trade the Nocturne over and try and get this Infernal Drake. But Ziggs Mega Inferno Bomb could be up in time, maybe?
We'll find out. It might just about be. You're right. And Gang's desperately trying to delay this, but I think this means that Infernal Soul will still be the trade. Yeah, it is taken. And that means that DFM couldn't try and take both. They tried to have their cake and eat it, but it means the Sengoku Gaming's Apperman does go down, but it's in trade for the Infernal Soul. And that could potentially bite DFM later on. Let's look at this engage one more time.
Okay, so what's happening here? DFM just trying to find a pick. Ghosties get thrown down, and then the ult comes through from Apperman. Hits through.
Misses everyone.
Misses everybody, and then it's just kind of they have no pressure after using all their ultimates. And
that Inferno Bomb.
Yeah, this is just Sengoku missing everything and DFM landing a few of them, and then that's just all that she wrote, really. Yutori Muashi also getting caught in the Death Realm basically sent signals very quickly that this fight's kind of over for Sengoku.
Yeah, and that is Ziggs with a fair amount of AP, getting a great Mega Inferno Bomb was pretty huge there. Although the retreat from Sengoku Gaming, not quite enough. And then that's that gold lead. Very tight for most of this game, now stacking up to about 3.5. But you've got to remember, Ornn plus Infernal Soul is a huge amount of stats. Like, if this Baron power play doesn't come out to a huge lead for DFM, they could still lose this game just by merit of having gone for the Baron and not the Infernal Drake.
And currently it's only about a 2k advantage, really, that DFM are getting from this Baron, which is gonna quickly...
It's something, but it's not a lot.
No, and I mean, this game's been so competitive. At most, really, we've seen 1k leads coming out for a team. So now that they're only getting an extra 1k worth of advantage, it's just not really happening. And everybody's just poising. Even with DFM having this Baron, it's just a lot of... pushing out your chest, saying I'm a bigger man, and then walking away because I don't actually want to fight you.
Yeah, and DFM actually struggling to push in there. Yutomiyoshi and NT particularly throwing out some fairly meaningful poke that Ezreal has hit 2 items, has got a QSS on top of it, so actually can be fairly aggressive with looking for that poke. And that looked pretty good, actually, trying to prevent DFM from getting towards this mid lane tier 2. More so than I actually was expecting. Yeah, has got to be careful. The whole death squad of DFM is here, but so is Sengoku Gaming, and that means that they're trying to take out this turret. But so far, the turret's only at about a half HP. Remember, Ziggs does have the ability to throw Satchel down and make people feel a bit sad, but wave clear is there for now. And it's only 20 seconds left on this Baron buff, and Sengoku Gaming have wave cleared exceptionally well.
Far better than I think either of us would have expected, but that just happens when you do have an Ornn with an Elise, as you were saying, with the Ezreal. They've got surprising amounts of like actual wave clear. It's not brilliant. It's no Ziggs on his own, really, but it's doing a
all of the Forge God coming around. They're going to try and just force people away. They know the Baron's ended. Not a lot gained for DFM there. They traded Infernal Soul for no turrets.
No turrets. Some damage on the spot turret, but even then it's just some damage, and Sengoku can do that to any of their turrets given an opportunity.
But that is what you get for at least actually had a fair amount of damage off those volatile spiralings. Yutomiyoshi is landing the poke, and Seros just isn't. Or if he is, it's landing onto Apperman. It's meaning a lot less. That's a binding that lands. Maybe still could be in trouble. Pyrian thought about it. Big Mega Inferno Bomb does chunk out the health bars, though. But with the Infernal Soul as well, remember, that AoE effect on those Mystic shots is huge, and it meant that they could just shove in on those waves. That was massive. And the upgraded Trinity Fusion now for the Ezreal means that's going to be even more.
And now we're seeing that the engage that DFM have is really starting to hurt them. They've got a decent wave clear, they can pressure people, but they don't actually have a really strong way of finishing. It's why that team fight, when they had it, when Sengoku missed everything, that DFM were able to capitalize and actually take away. Now, there was obviously that fatal mistake of potentially they should have taken that dragon away, denied that dragon, they would have burst it down in 3 seconds probably, and then they could have gone and taken this Baron, and maybe they're kicking themselves in the grand scale of things, because Elder and Baron are coming up at almost the same time, and DFM, you can't make that same trade again. You can't give Sengoku another dragon, because Elder Dragon is a very different story to a Baron.
Yeah, and there is about a 3,000 gold lead for DFM, which means absolutely jackal.
Yes.
When you have got all those Ornn items coming through and an Infernal Soul on top, that is a huge amount of gold value from those stats. And unlike the Baron, which kind of was relatively ineffective, the Soul stays around for the rest of the game. Yeah. Those Ornn items are staying for the rest of the game unless someone decides in some bizarre fit of madness to sell those items. That is massive stuff.
Yeah, and we've had 4 item upgrades coming through. This is a team, unlike we've seen for a few others, who is aggressively building items for their Ornn, which is what you're meant to do. If you pick this champion, that's what you're meant to do. You build the Ornn items, because that's how you really get the full power of Ornn, not just his power spike, not just his item advantage and everything else. Apperman is 0-3, and it feels like he's still incredibly relevant in every team fight. He tanks the damage, he's got so much initiation, and we're really just waiting for him to really land a really solid ult, to be honest.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And is this element, of course, of we've got, how do I put this? What are DFM's win conditions? That's what I'm saying. I'm seeing Seros being pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Utorimashi, who's got a GA, so might be able to survive that Nocturne, but is therefore a little bit lower on the damage. And Ebby is Ebby and very strong at 0.3, 1, and 2. But, like, how on earth do they actually find a fight? What do you see from DFM? How are they going to be able to turn this around? Because at the minute, it feels to me that Sengoku Gaming have got that huge advantage with those just raw stats.
I mean, I think what they need to do is just have better map awareness and play better around the map. But at the moment, it's really hard for this team as...
Oh, Steel, buddy, those are just random cues from Ezreal landing, and those Infernal Soul empowered Mystic shots are insane damage, and that means with this Elder Drake live and Steel so low, DFM might just have to give this up. Utorimashi is just starting, he's soloing this dragon.
And he can. He is able to actually just solo it on his own because of... well, I can't see his items, so I can't have an idea why he's able to just do that.
But what it has meant is that DFM are kind of forced to engage. That's just a random Duskbringer from Empyrean chunking out Steel again for a third. If that Mystic shot landed, he might have to go back. Those noises of dismay are absolutely appropriate because this is Infernal Soul Ezreal. It is a monster. And on Yutori Miyashi, this AD carry that we have kind of down as one of the greatest of all time, he's had to go back. The jungler is not here, and with all this damage, I think this is going to be another trade that's just free. DFM thinking, well, do we have to trade for Baron?
And as I said earlier, I was hinting to this, and I said, this is not the trade you want, DFM. This is a losing trade, because if you don't burst it down as fast, DFM...
The teleport's here. Sengoku Gaming smell blood in the water. Sharks play like dragons, and this means that the ult's coming in, so is Period, and the paranoia was not paranoid enough. Steel goes straight down. Fear the dark a little bit more. Fire and Elder Dragons mean that Steel just doesn't have a hope in hell of surviving that. And Baron will go the way of Sengoku Gaming. And I think they're going to be able to close this out. The Mega Inferno Bomb, one last attempt at a steal. And that means that Sengoku Gaming are in so much control of this game.
They can genuinely just push and basically end a lane. They have got so much power in comparison to the side of DFM. Any form of power advantage or similarity that the two teams had has been dashed away, not just because of this Baron to allow the pushes from the team to be more effective with their minions, but this Elder Drake, as we've seen in countless other games, just wins you a team fight. It just wins you the team fight, which is what Sengoku are going to be or should be pushing for. They need to be aggressive with this, because if they hang around like when they played against V3 and V3 didn't aggressively push them, well, that's what can happen. They've seen someone lose from this spot, so they need to make sure they capitalize on it fully.
Oh, yeah, they do. But at the same time, this is Infernal Dragon with Elder Dragon, that god tier of damage buffs. Like, imagine the paranoia coming in from Nocturne. Like, Nocturne's 100 to 0 threshold is massive right now. He only needs to do 2/3 of a squishy member's health to get that Elder Dragon execute, and that's not going to be hard work. Hell, I think potentially he could like get Ebby down to that point with a bit of judicious play. Like, that's the kind of terrifying prospect that DFM is staring down at. Look at that true shot barrage!
That just half-health Cyril's just straight
That's
up.
a nuclear warhead coming across the team there. Utterly disgusting.
Well, and Yutori Muashi, as we said, he's the player to play around for this Sengoku team, and coming in and very, very important. Arguably, one of the most important members of this team is just blowing up the side of DFM in any opportunity they get. And Apperman does Apperman things and keeps pushing all this side. They're getting this Elder buff value.
I'm sat here with you casting in London, and it feels like I am back in 1940. The air raid sirens are going as these massive air raids are coming across from like all the poke from Sengoku Gaming. And that's what we have to think about. These warning bells are coming down, and DFM, like, what do they even do versus this? They've got a little bit of time left. I'm not sure. I think the Elder Dragon buff might finally have worn out, but it means that all of their outer towers are kind of gone for DFM, and I got to think that with the Baron buff still here for 30 seconds, they might even still be able to get into this base. Like, I'm sorry, even without the Elder Dragon, they're just doing unreal amounts of damage.
That was a Spiderling and a Q from Ezreal.
Well, that is a Zhonya's paradox, and the paradox of late game Elise not doing damage with what we're seeing on our screens is very true. Morellonomicon is just picked up for a little bit of HP.
Oh my god, Steel, what happened? Buddy, what happened? Pyrian put the ult out because he was expecting bad things to happen, but No.
Blind to the threats there as the blind monk dives in, dies. And that means the base is completely broken.
And I like
It's
that zoning off from
They're
Apple,
going to
man.
think about ending. And rightly so. They don't need a Baron buff. They've got 5 members to 4 right now, and their only engage is Steel. But maybe they will pull off. Maybe the wave clear is just there. I mean, pushing into a Ziggs without Baron is a bit tricky. Another 2-shot barrage does, a fair amount of damage even onto Ebby.
And look at that gold swing difference. That is incredible. Over the last 5 minutes.
8,000 swing?
Basically, since they got the Elder Drake to then kill Steel so they could then take the Baron, they basically went from 3k behind to now having basically taking a 7k gold swing. That is
they are 5k ahead
insane.
at this point. Insane. Yeah, I completely agree. And
and now they know where they want to play around.
Well, like the thing is, we had some hope for DFM in a team fight, right? Like there was a lot of damage there. There was a lot of area effect ultimates. You could see with the whip, you can turn into a 4v5 with the Death Realm coming down. There were options, right? But at this point, even if it is a 4v5 with the Death Realm involved, I'm sorry, but just that massive amount of damage that's going to be coming through. Ezreal with 3 items, Nocturne with 3 items. That's an Elise that's got a needlessly large rod. She's that damn fed. Like, she's 70 CS up on this Lee Sin, who is got a stopwatch at least for maybe some tricky plays. But, like, what on earth do DFM even consider doing? Like, Gang's level 12, and that Elise poke, like, at 3 levels up, like, Elise poke will be more than enough to, like, chunk out a flipping Karma.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at the gold, the level deficit. Siros, who was always above Pyrion, is now down. Ebby's the only one tying. Blank's 2-level advantage, Yutori Muashi's 2-level advantage, and Gang is mirrored with NT. But, like, that is just scary to just think about the levels that they have and the amount of powers coming through. Imperium's just chilling in mid lane.
Well, yeah, but he can, because remember, like, Paranoia is like it's an instant teleport.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to wait on the channel, right? As long as you're in range, you can come flying across the map very swiftly. And in mid lane, he's more than in range at level 17.
And he's more than happy to just keep pulling this pressure advantage, because if the minions keep hitting these inner turrets, it's another thing DFM have to think about. They have to go, oh, well, now we need to go back and forth. And playing this back and forth game is something that actually Sengoku want to do, because they're looking towards this Elder Drake.
Like, it is 36 minutes, and in some ways we were it is Sengoku gaming. They close out slow. We know they do. They've not gone for the throat quite yet. It's a second Elder Drake, though, and if this doesn't allow them to tear the heart out of DFM and win this game, I don't think anything will.
I wouldn't be surprised if they literally go from Elder to Baron and go, okay, let's end. Let's end. Yeah, let's do this clean. Exactly it. Let's get all the power that we can get. Full max power. Going in as if they're Homer Simpson in his new pseudonym under Max Power. Great episode, may I say. One of my favorite
That was a reference I was not expecting at all.
I mean, this is definitely why the podcast does derail sometimes, because my brain's not completely there. And
well, yeah.
Yutori just TP'd in just to get closer to the team.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like, they just want to throw out all these waves. They're making sure the vision's there. They're going to pop over the wall. Dragon is started. Well, Baron rather is started, and that means that this is going to be.
It's going down so quickly, and it's only 2 members.
Infernal Soul. Like, this is like DFM are in a hole, and there is this tiny pinprick of light at the top that's victory, and it's slowly dwindling into nothing. And it's just the darkness of Ezreal and Paranoias surrounding them at this point. I'm seeing a snowball's chance in hell or a death realm for these guys to win at this point. And that's just not what I was expecting. I think we're about to witness DFM's first loss.
I mean, where do TFM get in? The whole during while they've been clearing, while Sengoku have been clearing out the rest of the jungles, taking every advantage they can, DFM have only been able to clear waves. They have been literally kept into their base, meaning the amount of gold that they are behind has only gotten bigger, with Sengoku just going, well, we want this. Okay. Well, I just crashed.
It feels like it's permitted. Look at the damage. The Guardian Angel is just popped. And that means that Seros desperate to get back to the fountain. Steel goes in, kicks back on Morgana. There's an Infernum ult that is just not enough compared to the Infernal Soul. And it's a triple kill for the Ornn of all people, who proves he too is a carry threat. DFM dropped their first game. They have a 90% win rate now, but that was a hell of a game to lose.
Apologies, sorry for the stream, as we did have a slight technical fault there just before the whole game did end. But
no!
I think we can all imagine, as we saw DFM members were still alive.
Like, not cast the first game which DFM lose.
Yes,
I
you
legit
did.
not cast.
You did.
That.
Guess
You
who's
did,
here
Chimera.
just for a little bit?
Just popping in.
Hi, buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave now, but just wanted to say, wow, thanks guys.
Yeah.
Leave.
So, let me give you some context. We saw DFM give up Infernal Soul for a Baron where they got no towers. And then it was Yutori Miyashi on a 2.5 item Ezreal with upgraded Ornn items, throwing out Qs that were half healthing the side of DFM. And Blank, who was 2 levels up on the Elise versus Elise, and was throwing out volatile spiderlings that were chunking the entire team out.
Oh, you hate to see it. Well,
Yeah.
I only just get to pop in now, but okay, I'll have to look over that one. Good cast, guys.
Thank you very much. What a lovely little pop in there from Alcala
Guest
Casting, who
appearance.
is available, but sadly has other commitments today. Can't believe it, really. LJL is love, LJL is life. But the life part is haunting us a little bit. But
Yeah.
yes.
That was a game where DFM never looked like they had a chance. Well, except from the early spot. The early game where everybody's farming, doing their lane stuff. But even then, Blank was like, I want to show up today. I'm here to play this game today. And that's exactly what he did. He stayed aggressive. He stayed applying pressure at every moment. And that's what it needed to do. And, well, DFM never really quite came back into this game to a point.
No, like we saw the idea, right? They had a lot of 2 winning lanes in the mid and the bot. We saw the Aphelios and the Karma making the Ezreal Morgana look a little bit weak in lane, forcing that back early on that Ezreal particularly was pretty strong. But Blank just found a number of really key ganks. He found the double kill for first blood in the bot side. He counter ganked in mid as Pyrion was getting attacked by the Ziggs and the Lee Sin. He finds a kill up top side as well onto Ebby. I think like he was just everywhere in that early game. Got the objective snowballing. It meant that DFM, while they were farming well and picked up that second Rift Herald, were never in a massive gold advantage. And that Infernal Soul trade for a Baron that did nothing really was the death knell.
It really, really was. Getting that Infernal Soul just basically put lights out in the whole grand scale of things. And we saw DFM did get an advantage at some point. But like looking at this gold chart, DFM, at most they had a 3.5k, I think, gold lead, which you said doesn't mean anything. And it didn't mean anything because Sengoku were always in that driving seat. Even with damage being very comparable between the two teams, one team is far better at doing a team fight than the other. And
3,000 gold means nothing in the face of Ornn items, Infernal Soul, and an Elder Drake. Like, and then with like damage that is super, super easy to land as well. Like Ezreal Mystic shots are like not exactly the lowest cooldown or the highest cooldown rather, and like shortest range, right? They're super easy to hit on someone. Like they hit anybody on the team of DFM, and it's going to be massive damage. And it was like any squishy member that was taking those hits was like losing like practically their entire health bar. We saw that true shot barrage that like nearly destroyed DFM from 100 HP. Like that's
well,
100%
half health,
HP.
half of the players on their team, and that was
right.
Like, what are you meant to do? What do you do in that spot? And frankly, I think DFM had already lost by that point because that was a very powered up Yutori Muashi, who was having arguably his breakout game of the season so far. This was a game from every spot outside of, well, this was a blank Yutori Muashi game as opposed to the game what we have been seeing where it's normally been Pyrion and Yutori Muashi.
Like, I will say I wasn't that impressed with the Nocturne. Didn't really feel like it did a lot. It was kind of an accessory to the victory of Blank's early game, some judicious decision making, and like just mad damage from Yutori Miyashi. But like the fact that DFM just drafted themselves into a little bit of they went for a draft that was very them, but they drafted themselves into a little bit of a hole maybe, and then and then kind of lost all the objectives. Like, that was not good. That's by far the worst game we've seen from DFM. And even then, they weren't playing entirely badly in the early game, and they just kind of ran out of options.
They
I think,
weren't.
was probably what I was saying.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that statement. They ran out of opportunities. I mean, there is that problem that Ebby was put onto this Mordekaiser, which he picked into and never got a lead. Never got a lead, and when he did have a lead, it was very insignificant. Even with Appermen dying 3 times, it never thought Appermen was actually at a disadvantage.
Well, how does Mordekaiser get onto anybody? There's no like serious engage. So he's got to like flash for something, and if he flashes, once you get someone in the death realm, like Nocturne runs away pretty fast if he's on his Dustbringer, can throw down, can fear the Mordekaiser if he has to, can throw up a spell shield. Ezreal can arcane shift. It's actually, like, Elise repels. Like, it's actually quite possible to kite out the Mordekaiser within the death realm at that point.
Yeah.
So even if he does get someone in the death realm, like, it's not necessarily a guaranteed kill, especially when Sengoku Gaming have already managed to get themselves a little way ahead. So, like, I don't know. I was saying like that Mordekaiser was always going to struggle to truly carry that game. He had to be a secondary carry, and like the rest of the team, like Aphelios tried to put out damage, but like everybody was diving onto him, and he could never actually stand and fire because all of the damage was coming at his team.
Yep.
Seros played well on the Ziggs. I'll give him to that. Like he was
did.
the one guy
he was the highest damage output in that game at 23.
Yeah, he was trying.
So did a good job for him, but the rest of the team, I mean, Steel, honestly, I think is his worst game at the LJL.
Yeah, I agree.
But everybody deserves, and Gang to a point as well. But everybody's gonna have a bad game at some point. It's kind of better if you lose the game, but a lot of your team have a pretty meh game. This was Ebby's arguably kind of least impactful game. If all your team are gonna have a bad game, and this is gonna be your bad game, if you're all gonna do it together, that's fine by me.
Yes, like I do think like let's not like oversell it saying, oh my day, DFM are done, they'll never win again. Like that's not it. Like this is quite easily fixable. It's a draft issue, and they can look at this game and hopefully learn from it. And that's not a bad thing in some ways. Like DFM kind of seeing this and going, okay, we've got some things to work on. For the rest of the league, though, this kind of breaks a little bit of that aura around DFM.
It does.
Think. And that means that a lot of other people are going to be going, well, if Sengoku Gaming could do it, we definitely can.
I mean, at the end, going into week 4, going into last week, Sengoku were 2-4. And now this team that has 2-4 has now had a 3-win streak, and in that streak now they get to add DFM to that lineup. That does make them look incredibly strong, and also now pushes Sengoku into that 2nd place spot.
That is not what I was expecting. Like, I will say that in my predictions at the beginning of the split, I had Sengoku Gaming as second. I will say a couple weeks into the split, I was feeling a touch foolish. And
well, they've run it up.
But this game is kind of showing why I had some faith in this team. I saw Pyrion as a very consistent mid laner. I saw Blank as a very tenured, experienced player with a lot of talent, potentially. We've seen him at his best on SKT was an utter monster. At his worst, he was pretty poor, but at his best, he was genuinely great. And Yutori Mayashi is an all-star. So I had faith in this team. And this is the kind of game where you say, okay, this is what this team can do. Now, has it been consistently that? Hell no!
Arguably the most coin flippy team of the whole league.
And even when they do get victories, they close out quite slow. That is just the way this team plays it. They play to tick all the boxes, and sometimes in trying to tick all the boxes, they let their opponents steal those boxes.
Yep.
But this time around, it worked out really well. They had every possible backing buff they could ever ask for to sort of destroy DFM with it, and it turned out in their favor.
For our next game, though, we're going to see another team who's going to be fighting for that 2nd place spot. That is going to be the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming, facing off against V3 Esports, who are looking to actually try and stay in that playoffs contention. It's going to be a hell of an exciting game coming up right after this break, and we can't wait to see you after it. Thank you so much for watching.